On the one side of the spectrum, there's like overly emotional, nice guy, really tuned into feelings a little too much and just unable to wade through it all. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, right? Usually it's your men that are very high achieving, very high performing. They've pushed a lot of that to the side. They've pushed it inside effectively. They're blocked. They're blocked from ever being able to really bond with a woman in a meaningful way. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack, here. And today I want to talk about one of the sexiest things about men, and it might not be what you think. I want to talk about just my feelings on the state of masculinity and one big thing that is missing. Again, I'm not here to talk about what masculinity is and is not. That is like a man's job and role and space. I am just reflecting on what it feels like as a woman, so that we can hopefully continue to get closer and closer and continue to build the harmony that I know that we, men and women, deeply, deeply seek with each other. So let's get into it, okay? I was watching the Adam Lane Smith interview this past week on Modern Wisdom, and I thought that he had some brilliant, wonderful information and very spot on information. He had some great quotes, things like, men need power to dominate circumstances, not other people, right? This idea of, men are really keen to struggle and go through hardships when there's meaning and they have a clear purpose and vision, and there's a clear path to get that vision, right? To go and achieve and to go on the path towards that purpose. We haven't done that for men in a long time. We haven't given this to men. We have taken what was left, what was there for men, especially in the last century, which wasn't that much to begin with, right? So what I mean by that is, there is so much meaning and richness and purpose and connection and physicality and emotional understanding, I think, that men have always had, especially if we think about tribal times, the connection of the brotherhood. There's so much richness there. That has been going away for many, many centuries. It's not just about 1960s feminism, right? But what we did take away, especially from American men, was this very clear sense of purpose that was locked up in financial provision here in the States, right? And it was like the last thing that they had left after all the wars and after all the difficulty and after all the struggle. And that's heartbreaking. And there's so much more to this conversation, right? And so one thing that Adam Lane Smith was talking about was that, we've had this big death of the old style of masculinity, which I think he's referring to like the 19th, 20th century masculinity. And maybe now we can awaken a new masculinity. What is this new masculinity? Many men talk about it. Many people are talking about it, right? Connor Beaton talks about mature masculinity in a meaningful way. When I think about, that kind of deeply emotional, deeply rich, deeply strong, brave, connected, intuitive, available man, it's there aren't a lot of examples in real life, right? But I think of like the man from the last of the Mohicans, right? The Daniel Day-Lewis character that is there. Rob Roy, that is there too. And there definitely are in real life. And I want to get into some of my observations and some of my thoughts around that. So we'll talk about mature masculinity and what that feels like and what the sexiest thing about a man is. And I'm going to say it right now. And it's because I identified something when I was watching that Adam Lane Smith interview. And I've identified it with a lot of men, and I've called it out with a lot of male clients that I have as well. Sometimes when I hear information and a lot of spot on information, really smart, really brilliant, lovely information. It's great, but oftentimes there's a disconnect when it's just stuff that's been read and studied, and there's no actually lived experience in what he's saying, right? So my big impression, and again, no shade on Adam Lane Smith. He's wonderful. He's a family man, doing great things, delivering amazing information, and quite the expert on attachment theory, and bravo to him. And I felt that he wasn't grounded. He wasn't present, right? He there was no open space being created there, right? And that is just something that I felt from him. And so I was just like, oh, I'm missing grounding. And I was discussing it with a friend, and he was saying something like, oh, yeah, he's informing, he's not connecting, right? And what does that actually mean? Why does that happen? Where does that come from? And we can really link this back to what was going on in the 20th century in my view and what I've seen and heard and read and everything that I'm thinking about based on this idea of informing, not connecting, right? It's like, yes, men were doing the damn thing. They were bringing home money. They were providing. They were doing their job. But there was such a missing depth of connection and bonding that I imagine existed long before Industrial Revolution, right? So much of our woes reflect the Industrial Revolution and all the changes that we've made to the point where, we're in this like peak progress. It's like so peak progress that it's like anti-progress now. And it's just like going backwards. I was listening to Mary Harrington talk about how we're going backwards, right? So many more people are less literate than they were 50, 60, 100 years ago. Um, the overly too much comfort brings too much laziness, which brings a regression tangent. So back to this idea of bonding and masculinity. And I want to bring up actually, because this reminded me of something that I wrote. It was like a year and a half maybe ago. And I think it's just really poignant around this idea of the sexiest thing about a man is his grounded presence. And what I want to say now, and I'll get right back to this, but I know a lot of men love metaphors, and a lot of my clients are always like, give me a metaphor, give me a metaphor. And I'm like, okay, I came up with one. So if a man is a chair, okay, if you are effectively a chair, just bear with me here. When you are not grounded and present, there is someone else sitting on the chair, and I can't sit there. You are not a welcome, open container. I've talked about containers all the time, right? It's someone else is sitting there. Now, it may be your inability to process emotions. It may be someone else is there. Oftentimes, for a lot of the men that I've met that have a lot of overwhelm and emotional stickiness, have difficulty wading through their emotions, mom. It's actually mom that is sitting on that chair. A lot of men and women get married. Okay, they get married and they're not in tune enough to know all of this, and they also don't understand attachment theory and all of that. Women will marry men whose chair is not empty. Women will marry men whose mother is sitting in that chair and she won't get up. She won't get up because he has to make her leave, right? He's the one that has to make her leave. Otherwise, it won't work. And there's a real like inability to bond with a woman if there's such emotional distress going on there. And there's so many ways that happens, right? There's on the one side of the spectrum, there's like overly emotional, nice guy, really tuned into feelings a little too much and just unable to wade through it all. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, right? Usually it's your men that are very high achieving, very high performing. They've pushed a lot of that to the side. They've pushed it inside effectively, and they're blocked. They are blocked from ever being able to really bond with a woman in a meaningful way. And so what I was writing was, during most of the last century, men over-indexed on the warrior, with more wars fought during the 1900s than any century prior. I mean, they kind of had to. They really, really had to. And I think we just have to be loving about that, right? Just loving about that. And there's just, it's one of the things I always come back to is this ridiculous like game of, who had it worse. And it's like women had many frustrations and difficulties to suffer with, and men had so many as well, right? And it's like for every oppressed woman, there's three dead men, right? Because of what was going on in the 19th and 20th centuries. So the thing about the warrior archetype, though, is to be successful, emotional detachment is required, especially in war, especially in battle. And it's that warrior archetype that really attracts a woman, right? It's really attractive. There's like a intense focus. There's this idea of, yeah, there's a goal that I have. There's some sort of mission and purpose, and I know the path to take it. I'm gonna go down this path, and I'm gonna go take it, and it's awesome to the point where I was I found a new boxing gym, and I was in a class, and this like very beautiful woman walked by, and like I noticed her because I'm a woman. I have diffused focus, and I'm looking at the environment at all times. And most of the men that were in the class just did not even notice. They were so locked into what they were doing. And it's like such a cool thing about men, and it's wonderful. And it's what attracts women to them, right? Because it's like, oh, you're signaling your focus. You're signaling all of these things that make me as a woman feel safe, right? How attractive is it when we meet someone and they're not seeking our validation? They're just on their way. Same with the sexes reversed, right? How beautiful is it when a man meets a woman and she's not seeking validation. She's just living her life and just really like a force of nature. And she's beautiful and alluring, and her smile and just everything that she is, right? She has these passions. One of the most beautiful things that I've experienced in life is just how excited men get when women are passionate about something. They're like, "Oh yeah, like what else? Tell me more." It's so attractive, and it's beautiful, and it links back to men having space for a woman to sit down in his chair, if you will, right? So in our current culture, though, we've demonized the warrior in men because of that lack of emotional availability, right? So when you overdo the warrior, some of the other things fall apart. And so remember, there are four main masculine archetypes. It's from the book, forgot who wrote it in this moment, but that's okay. King, warrior, magician, lover. King, warrior, magician, lover. And so basically, I wrote, we're demonizing the warrior in men because of that lack of emotional availability we've collectively experienced from them in the past. So we think surely suppressing it will help. Very wrong. Another example of short-sightedness, lack of nuance, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The issue was never the warrior itself, but men of the past showing up to other parts of their life in warrior energy, right? The parts of their life that required the other three archetypes: the lover, the magician, the king, right? Men that were influenced by like the John Wayne styles of manhood tried to kind of strong arm their relationship with their lovers and their kids. Like what I said before, a man in a conversation with a woman can inform or he can connect, right? He can do both, of course, but so few men I see in the world are are truly connecting in such a way that their chair is empty for her. She feels like she can sit down in their chair. And that's just everything that a woman is deeply, deeply, deeply searching for in her core is safety. And so often we think of safety as just physical, right? You can have the strongest, buffest, biggest man that cannot connect, cannot bond emotionally, cannot make a woman feel safe, just cannot do it, no matter how many, pounds he can bench press or pounds, weights, all that. So it doesn't work, right? There's nothing wrong with the warrior and the emotional detachment required to achieve goals, right? Like the boxer focusing in on his fight in the moment. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just incomplete without the incorporation of the other three archetypes, right? And I just think that, and the last few things I wrote is like one of the coolest things about men is their capacity to compartmentalize their different aspects and bring forth what's required for different moments and needs. All it takes is some transition time. That's one of the things that just like is a big aha. And for women that, you know, want to show their men that they love them and they appreciate them is just like implementing this knowledge into life, you know. You need transition time in a way that I do not as a woman. I don't need it, but you need it. So I'm going to give it to you. You deserve it. You deserve to have it. It's yours, right? It's your nature. And so the warrior is foundational in building a man's self-respect, confidence, sense of achievement, and it's what initially attracts a woman. But what makes her stay is the ability to transition into the passion of the lover, I wrote, the depth of the magician, and the generosity of the king, right? When the moment calls for it. And so this all comes back to our stages of life, right? Stages of life that Robert Bly outlined, many other people have outlined. And there's a real important understanding. As a woman, it's very clear that we've ignored all of the stages of life, right? The stages of life for men, which are bonding with the mother. Very, very important. Like complete and total bonding. And then releasing of the mother. And if we don't do that, if that stage doesn't happen completely, and I have another little video about this, stage one, I'll link it down below. But if that doesn't happen, mom will be in his chair forever. She will be in his chair forever. And he will never be able to bond deeply and emotionally with a woman in the way that he wants to. And then she will never receive that. She will never experience that. And Adam Lane Smith was talking about, you know, the four like aspects of safety, right? There's physical, of course, but there's resource safety, emotional safety, and bonding safety, right? It's you think about Last of the Mohicans guy with the woman in the film, right? The love interest, like there was such bonding there that was happening. There was such a ability to hold space. There's so much to say about this, but you know, I've connected it to a muse in a way. You know how just in history and in our arts and in culture, a woman as a muse has always inspired creativity, right? Beautiful, angelic, alluring woman, kind of inspiring creativity, especially from a man, right? That opposite sex polarity, the way the yin and yang works. He suddenly fused with this like passion and desire to create, right? To write a new music piece, to paint a painting. Men do the same thing for women, but they don't do it by like laying around on couches, right? They do it through their presence and their ability to have integrated their emotions so that they have a clean, open, empty space so that their chair is empty. And when that is there, it is so healing, so safe, so soft for a woman to land there. She can actually land there. And that is what creates this beautiful beginning of exchange between with yin and yang. And so, and there's so many ways that we get to understand what's gone wrong, right? Is there an attachment fragmentation that happened with mom? Is there some attachment issues that happened with dad? Again, if dad was not around and he was a really passive guy, then and mom was around, then there's still attachment issues because again, when a woman is overwhelmed, pulled away, frustrated, not supported, she's gonna have attachment issues with her kid, right? That's why we deeply need two-parent households. And so, and understanding of all this stuff. But think about also in the last 100 years, right? Women collectively have been overwhelmed, pulled away, I wrote this in my newsletter this week, just like juggling plates while doing cartwheels, because like we've taken away from men the one thing that they were doing, right? Not the one thing, but like that financial provision, and then which led to the being a good dad and like showing up and being there and caring for a family. All of that was taken away, and then women are trying to do it all. And so there's so many attachment issues that result in boys not getting their stage one. Stage one doesn't happen, the full bonding with mom and the full release with mom. And then stage two doesn't happen, right? Properly, which is the bonding with dad and the release from dad. And then stage three doesn't happen. The male mentor, the brotherhood, um, mastering something, right? Outlining the mission and the clear path towards getting it, right? These are all things that are so foundational for men. And these are the things that create that empty chair where a woman can come into and then she can receive from him that safety, and then she can give back 10 times fold, right? Women are reflectors. Women, she can nurture, she can give, she can, do it all. And so there's so much more to say on this topic, but I am going to call this one here. I am flying to Australia today and, going to continue to talk about this topic. Let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. And until the next one, if you found value in what I'm doing here, please help me grow the podcast. And you can do one of two things. Either share the episode with a friend or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple. This will help me so much. Until next time.